Hello everyone and welcome to the Arbor Farm. Thank you for joining us for today's episode where I want to share with you how we water our baby plant seedlings. Let's get started. Now, why do we think that watering your seedlings is an important enough subject that I need to take a short video to tell or explain how to do it? Because watering them is the number one aspect of keeping them alive for growth to be transplanted outside. Now, our rule of thumb is that people can help us plant the seedlings, people can help us transplant the seedlings, but when it comes to watering is so finicky, so delicate, that I take that on myself as my responsibility because I don't want to blame someone if a whole tray of plants dies. That's my fault. So hopefully that doesn't happen, and hopefully it doesn't happen to you. Just a couple of things to keep in mind. When we're growing plants out, we start them from seed inside and we grow them out until it's safe to plant them outside after we have passed our last frost. And so keeping them nutrient provided for and nice and healthy until we're able to plant them outside into an environment where they will thrive. We also need to help them thrive inside. That's our goal. So we're starting them from seed, from teeny tiny little seedlings, and then growing them out into sizable plants. So how do we do that? How do we keep them watered? So for us, before a seed is germinated, in other words, it pops open and starts to become a plant, until that happens, we keep them under cover in their own greenhouse-like effect. That's the first stage. At this stage, we don't add any water. The water is just in there. The moisture in our soil is what the seed needs in order to germinate. Now, once they have germinated, in other words, that seed has popped open and we have teeny tiny leaves, we remove the cover. So at that point, the plant starts to need some water that you or that I will add. So once the plant has germinated, we have teeny tiny little plants that don't yet have what are called true leaves. I pulled this tray of feverfew off of my grow rack across the room here, and wanted to use this as an example. So it no longer has a lid because more than 50% of the seeds have germinated, but it does not yet have true leaves. So to water this one, I am going to simply use water from the tap. Okay, so I use tap water. And the best way to water them is by bottom watering. Now, I don't want to take my water and pour it all over, this tray, because that could cause some other damage to my plants. But I'm simply going to show you what to do to bottom water. Okay, so I have my tap water here in a cup. I like to use a cup because then I'm not pouring from a gallon jug and getting the water, everywhere. It's more controlled, I feel like. So what I do is I tip my tray and I start right at the top and I just add a little bit of water. Now that water, I'm watching it and it's going down my tray because I'm tipping my tray. And once it gets to this end of the tray, I know that it has covered all of those soil blocks underneath. And so that is sufficient water at this point. The thing that you'll want to double check is to make sure that your soil blocks or whatever soil growing medium you're using is not sitting in water. when you're finished. You don't want it to sit in water because that can cause rot or what is called dampening off, and it kills your baby plants. So it's important to let it dry out between waterings. So depending what kind of environment your plants are in, you may or may not have to water them every day, but you should check on them every single day. So we don't water every day because we let them dry out all the way in between and then just add a little water, enough to cover the bottom. And again, these are our seedlings that do not yet have true leaves, so we use plain tap water. Here is the next step. These plants are also a variety of feverfew, and they do have true leaves. You can see that they are bigger than this tray here that we just worked on. So they have true leaves. And what we use once a week for our plants with true leaves is a fish emulsion fertilizer. Now, if you have a weak stomach, you want to use caution. This stuff stinks. It literally stinks. So we use this fish plant food, Alaska plant food fish emulsion, and it will not burn your little seedlings once they have the true leaves. So that's what we use, and I'll put the link down in the description below. We just mix a tablespoon of this with our tap water. I just save an old milk jug and I label it as such so that there's no confusion, because you certainly wouldn't want to confuse this because this stuff smells nasty. But you just use that to water your seedlings once a week, and the rest of the time, if they need water, just use the tap water. So this one, again, I hold it on an angle. I'm just putting some water at the top of the tray, and I watch until the bottom of the tray here is completely covered. Again, I don't want to leave standing water in this kind of a plant that's at this stage either. So make sure you're not leaving standing water, but make sure that all of the plants have been watered. And then we continue to grow our plants on until we are able to plant them outside. Sometimes that varies, as you know, depending on the weather. And so if it is cold later in the season than anticipated, you might need to keep some seedlings inside for a longer length of time. And just kind of what we do is we observe them and try to anticipate their needs. So when they get bigger, obviously they're going to be struggling for nutrients, because like these plants, these are marigolds that we started inside, and they need to go outside soon, but my weather's not going to allow it yet. You can see that the roots, they're searching for nutrients. And so these plants can benefit from the fish emulsion fertilizer more than once a week. So we don't give it to them every day. We might do like an every other day so that we don't oversaturate these plants with the nutrients, which can also be harmful. But try to give them adequate food to keep them nice and green in color so that they don't get yellow or even brown and die. If you notice that your plants are struggling, you know, there's another aspect. Let's say they have adequate water, you fertilize them adequately, and they're still struggling. Light is also an aspect that could go hand in hand with that. Making sure that they have the adequate light that they need could be the problem if your seedlings start to look a little iffy. We have our lights on a timer, and so they're on for 16 hours a day, but the plants do also get that darkness just like they would if they were outside and in their natural environment. So what happens if I'm watering my plants, my little seedlings, and I accidentally get too much water in here? Well, here's what I do. let's water these guys because these straw flower, they're ready for it. But if I get too much water, again, I'm going to check, is there any standing water? And if so, what I can do is I can just carefully pour that out. I can pour that out so that I don't have standing water to injure my plants or to keep them from growing on into being the strongest plants that they could possibly be. So just drain out extra water if you accidentally get too much. So just by way of recap, if you are someone who has employees or other people helping you, make sure that you are the one who's responsible for the watering, because watering, again, is a very delicate job. Check your plants every single day to see if they need water, because it only takes a day and they could be too dry and you could lose them. So you don't want that to happen when you've invested several days or weeks growing them. And so check on them every single day. Number 3 aspect to remember is once they get little leaves, true leaves, you can start adding the fish emulsion fertilizer to their watering once a week. And after that, every other day or as needed. Thank you for joining us for today's episode. Our goal is to always create content that's helpful for you. And if you found today's content helpful, please click the like button and subscribe to our channel so that you can receive notifications as to when the next content is available. And as always, if you have questions or comments, please drop those below. We would be happy to engage with you, and we read every single one. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day.